What's up? What's up? Hey, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Azure Developer CLI Community Standup. Oh, I can hear myself. That was weird. Probably because I had to open another tab to make sure.
That's always so jarring.
Well, I wanted to make sure we were live. You know, you hit a button and you're like, is it actually playing? But we are. That actually did affirm to me that we are a couple seconds behind. So that's cool. How's it going, Grace?
Pretty good. Ready for another call. My first one was last month, and now I'm feeling good. Excited to get started.
Yeah, I know last time you were like, I'm a little bit nervous. Nervous this time, less nervous?
Maybe a little bit nervous, but not as nervous as the first time.
Well, we have like a stacked roster of folks sitting in the sidelines right now, so we can just jump right into it. And if you all have questions or comments, or you want to shout out any of the devs that work on the Dev CLI, feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay, well, let's get right into it then. Cool. So this is the overview of what we got going on today. So we have some new features coming your way. We've got command and service hook support, which Wei is going to take us through. We're also going to talk about new support for multiple Azure organizations. We also now have package manager support, which I know lots of folks are super excited about. And then we have some special guests, honorary members of the Dev CLI team, to showcase some awesome Python and Dapr templates. And then we'll have Q&A, of course. But at any time, feel free to drop questions in there. Yep, we got John in the chat, member of the Dev CLI team, and then we also have Haley, who's also a member on our team. Cool. Okay, so for anyone who's new and wasn't here last call, this is the team of folks that works on the Dev CLI. We've got a smattering of folks across product management, UX design, UX research, and a whole bunch of engineers that are working on Dev CLI features. So you might see us on GitHub, or if you want to come yell at us or say nice things on Twitter, here are some of the handles. But yeah, cool. Cool. I'm not going to go into all of these, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things that went to the latest release. We had some bug fixes that went in around Azd up with the template flag. We also had we've been working really hard on getting our UX design language consistent across all of our commands. So we had some UX improvements there. So if you're noticing that pipeline config looks better, or Azd up provision deploy looks really snazzy, we're been hard at work at it. We've got some other stuff teed up too. And then some MSI upgrades as well. Yeah, so there's more about that in the February release blog post, which you can read, that kind of goes through all of this. A lot of the stuff that we're demoing here today will also be included in that blog post, but it's a little bit more fun to showcase demos, and also you can poke at us and ask questions and stuff too. Cool. What's next? Okay, we're right into demos. Let me hide this banner. So first up, I've got Wei. I'm going to bring on a new friend. We've got Wei. Hey, Wei, how's it going?
Hey, Savannah. It's great to be here.
Cool. I'm going to hand this over to you. And if at any point you want to share screen, let me know and we can hop over from the deck. Otherwise, we can just work from the deck. But yeah.
Sure. All right. Yeah, we'll do this deck to start. So this is a feature that I'm particularly excited about. I didn't work on this. Again, my good friend and coworker Wallace did a lot of the design and implementation here. But we've essentially been, getting a lot of asks around trying to integrate, people wanting to integrate their own custom workflow into Azd, right? And so people want things like, being able to run tests when you run Azd up or deploy. People want to run, post-deploy tests, right, where you validate that your service is up and running and healthy. And also all kinds of scenarios like, trying to provision, AAD resources and all that. So we've kind of received a lot from different ends, like different scenarios that all, need some sort of extensively feature. And so the way we've kind of, thought about it and thought the best way to do this is through, again, hooks. So hooks are basically things that you can, you write your own shell script, and then in Azure.yaml, you can, define, what type of hooks you like to run and when. And then the magic happens when you run, Azd up or Azd deploy. We'll look at your configuration and run those shell scripts as part of the command itself. And so to you, again, it just runs as part of deploy, and there's no, again, additional like run this test command and then run this deploy. It all happens as part of the workflow. So that's pretty cool. And again, same thing happens in CI/CD. Again, you get the same command running there. And so when we talk about hooks, there are command hooks and service hooks. And again, the difference really is just command hooks. Again, it's the exact command you run when you interact with Azd, right? Like Azd up, Azd restore. And service hooks, they kind of happen, in the command itself. And so, for example, when you do a deploy, we actually restore package your application before pushing it to Azure. So service hooks kind of allow you to go that deeper level, and you can also define a hook, per each service. And so those are two levels of hooks that we have.
And there's like a lot of flexibility here too, right? Because you can do like inline scripts, you can like refer out to a shell script that you've authored. There's like an interactive property where you can like get the output that comes out of those scripts. You can, customize it for things to run on specific operating systems. We really tried to make this as flexible as possible. So I was also really excited about this particular feature.
Yeah, we've kind of thought about all the different ways that people want to run the scripts, right? And like really thought about different operating systems. You might have developers working on Linux versus Windows, and trying to make this as cross-platform as possible.
Yeah. And you can read more about this in the blog post, or actually this links to the documentation for hooks as well. If you all are interested, there's also a section in the blog post that kind of goes into some of the specifics.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah, so if we have time, I can do a quick demo of it just to see it working.
Yeah, I think we got a couple minutes.
All right, I'll go ahead with that.
So use screen share, and then I'll hit a button, and you can have control. All right.
That's good. I requested.
All right.
All right.
Is it big enough for everyone, or do we need to zoom and enhance a couple levels?
It's always a good idea to
zoom and enhance.
Oh, so many different screen sizes.
Yeah.
I have the luxury of a big screen, but I know not everyone has that.
Yeah, that makes screen sharing like so much worse, though. Good for everyone
Absolutely.
else. Cool.
All right. So the application, again, I'm showing off today is, again, one that you're probably familiar with. It's one of the to-do applications that kind of showcase the full functionality of Azd. So this is the one that uses Node.js as the API, right? And so if you've never seen the application before, I'm just going to quickly show you what it looks like, right? It's just a simple to-do app, right? And so you can add items to your to-do list, right? And so underneath the covers, right, what we have here is we have a front-end React front-end, and then we have a Node.js-based API as the back-end, right? So with hooks, some of the cool things I could do here is things like, what if I want to run, my tests, before I deploy, so that I know that, my changes are good, right? And so I can easily do this now with the latest change by simply we have autocomplete support here, so you can literally just go to API. And so this is the Azure YAML file that I've opened, right? And go to hooks, right? And so you can see the different hooks that are available, right? So one of them would be pre-deploy. So for me, that would be useful because I'll be able to know my code changes are okay before I actually deploy. And so once I select that, you can see that I can pick the shell I'm interested in, right? And so we by default it defaults to whatever you have configured as SH, right? And otherwise there's also PowerShell available. So I'm primarily Windows, so I'm gonna stick to PowerShell. And so this run thing here, like Savannah mentioned, right? This is you can literally just write the command that you want here in line, and we will run this command using the shell that you specified, right? So if I just run npm run tests, and that will, again, so that's valid. So now, it will run npm run tests using PowerShell, and everything is good. Other options here, continue on error, whether you want the execution to continue, and whether you want it to be interactive. So for this purpose of demo, I want to be interactive so that all the logged outputs show up in the terminal. And the other thing I probably want to do here is to quickly, because how PowerShell works, we probably want to throw an error if npm run test fail. And so that's pretty neat. So now I have this set up, and so what I would expect is that when I run deploy for the API, we would execute, the tests that are in that service. And so this is what I mean by a service level hook. You can hover over the hooks definition. It will tell you that, this is a service level hook. So it's specified at the service level, right? And so it's only going to run when you deploy API, right? And the other thing is, like, the path that it will execute in is going to be based on the service path. And then the other thing I could do with hooks is to run a safety check, right? Whenever I deploy new changes to Azure, I want to make sure that the app is actually running, right? And so for this, we can define a command level hook. So again, similarly, you have more options here. For example, for provision, right, which is only at the command level. But I'm going to use post deploy for this. And I'm going to run the script that I already wrote here. And so what this playwright script is, it uses playwright, which, again, if you've never heard of it, right, it's just a way you can actually test web applications with a headless browser. And so that's really cool because I can, make sure that, my app is functioning as user would expect it after all my services are deployed, right? And so again, for this demo, I'm going to make this interactive so that we can see the output. All right, so that was a lot of things we had, or a little bit more because, I want to make sure that everything works correctly. But now that we have that set up, I can simply just run Azd deploy here. And so I'm just going to run for the full deploy. And we should see some output here when it detects the hooks, and because interactive is set to true, we should also expect that there's going to be some output from the test results.
Yeah, and I think just in case people were unaware, I know that a lot of the docs and our demos and stuff, we just show like Azd deploy, but Way originally had, and there's your output. Way had, passing in that service flag and only deploying the API. So there is like the flexibility in like the actual command, but then also this hook support. And I think that continue on error property is also super cool. So you don't run the tests, have errors, and then still go and deploy your code, because that would obviously
exactly
be great.
And you can see exactly what just happened, right? It's like, even as a hook, I still have the ability to, check whether everything worked or not, right? And so here I mistyped tests, and that immediately failed, right? So now that I fixed it, it will work better this time, right? But having that immediate error output instead of a silent failure helps a lot in trying to debug and write these hooks.
Sweet.
And I guess one thing I kind of glossed over, and so while this is running, okay, so here it's finally executing the pre-deploy hook. You can see it's an inline script, right? We kind of created a temp file for you. And so this temp file is always there if you need to debug it. And so like it helps, troubleshoot in case you aren't sure what really happened. We will clean up when it succeeds, right? But on failure, we will, again, leave it here for you, right? So that's a useful tip for advanced scenarios. There are some errors. Again, this is like non-fatal errors, but you can see that, here down here, it actually executed all my specification tests, right, and printed out code coverage. So I ran run test, npm test, right? So it's whatever I define in the package.json. But yeah, so it ran all the tests. Since there wasn't a failure, we continued with the deploy. And so like, yeah, so everything worked as expected, right? All the tests passed, and therefore deploy continues. If something would have failed, we would have seen the failure exactly how we saw it earlier.
And is there like a way for folks who are like running some pre-deploy script to take the output of that pre-deploy script and use it somewhere else later on?
Yeah, so I think the main thing is like you can set you can use like azd environment set, right, and set it as an environment variable. And so anything that's inside your environment, your script will be able to use them. So it will be available, you know, as if it was an environment variable in your shell. And we can show that a little bit later. But yeah, essentially, like you can use any of these variables. And so if you use it to set, you can also, you know, read it out later.
Very cool. Awesome. Cool. Are there any questions in the chat about any of this? Ways in the hot seat, so we can.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I'm super excited that this shipped in the latest release. I think we've heard a lot of feedback from folks about needing kind of more customizability and flexibility in their workflow, and happy that we're able to kind of support that. But if you're using this functionality, I'd not only be interested in feedback about like the actual like the capability itself, but also if there are ways that you think that we could better support you in editor. I think I'd also be interested in any ideas folks might have. So do weigh in on GitHub. Let me know. I would love to hear your feedback.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. And again, it's a you know, pretty in-depth feature. And again, I think we have some documentation, you know, to help you. But if you find there's missing, you know, docs and you want to learn more about it, you know, feel free to log a issue us up as well, and we can improve it.
100%. Okay, cool. I'm gonna hop back over to the slideshow, but Wei, you're not off the hook yet because you're next up for the next feature as well. I moved some slides around.
All right, awesome, cool.
Okay, so let's talk about Azure Orgs support.
All right, so so don't really have too much to demo here, but the main thing is we've kind of been trying to move away from like depending on or trying to prevent make it easier for users to install AZD, right? And so one of the things we've kind of done is that we've introduced, you know, the login command, right? That will, again, AZD will handle that natively for you, right? And so now with some of the latest changes, again, you should be able to use your personal accounts, you should be able to use your work accounts, and if you have multiple organizations, AZD will just automatically support that. So the key change really is when we list subscriptions, you should see subscriptions across all organizations. And when you run AZD commands, again, it's all kind of invisible to you, but AZD will handle that, you know, organization switching if needed, and yeah, run in the right context. So not a whole lot, but to say, but you know, things should work well for you as a user. AZD is doing the heavy lifting here.
Yeah, I think like this is all in the spirit of trying to make it like we've been really focused on making the installation process, which we'll get into in a second, and kind of the like streamlining your path from installing AZD to like your first deployment as simple as possible. And so any feedback around kind of the authentication bits or really any of that workflow, super interested in any issues you might encounter or any ways that we can make that smoother. Sweet. Okay, Wei, I think you're off the hook until we go into Q&A. So thanks for the demos. We'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, awesome.
Cool. All right, see you later. All righty. Up next, we have a familiar face. You may have seen him last community call. It's Daniel. What's up, Daniel?
Oh, doing well. Just finishing up, putting the last touches on package manager installs. So let's get into it. We have recently published to Winget, Chocolatey, and Homebrew. So for Winget, this defaults to a per user install. That's going to be easiest to get going if you're not an administrator on the machine. Winget install Microsoft.azd and you'll be off and running. Chocolatey, we also have a package up there, and it's Choco install AZD. Now, at this moment, we haven't pushed the latest bits, 060 beta 2. They're waiting for a review, but an older version is available. And now that we've got the automation merged, new versions will come out pretty much as soon as we do new releases. And then, of course, Chocolatey defaults to per machine. You'll want to run that inside of an elevated prompt as well. Let's see. Oh, astute observers will notice that our MSI, WinGet, and Chocolatey versions look a little bit different from the versions that we use for the rest of the CLI. So the actual CLI executable is going to have one version number, and then the MSI is going to have a little bit different version number, and that's designed to work with the way that MSI handles version numbers. And then, of course, finally, Homebrew. If you're on a Mac, you can go ahead and tap into our Azure/AZD tap. You just need to run that command once, and then brew install AZD will get you a per user install. This one downloads the binary directly. It doesn't do a compile on your local machine. And that's it for package managers. Also, shout out to David Gardner, who helped us get Choco across the finish line too. Thanks a lot, David, and thanks for your initial work on the Choco package as well.
Yeah, big thank you for that one. But Daniel, what about Linux package managers? Do we have any updates there we can give the people?
Yes, I'm working on that right now, actually. So that should be coming up probably in the next few weeks or so. And you'll be able to install off of packages.microsoft.com, and we'll have documentation instructions up there for you.
Sweet. I just didn't want to leave those folks out, after giving so much love to the other package managers. So awesome. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for that quick update. We'll see you in a bit. All right. Thanks, Daniel. Cool. All right. We have special guest number 1. It's Pamela. Hey, Pamela.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and clear.
All right. Sweet. So I'm going to talk about Python AZD templates. I love AZD, and I'm on the Python Cloud Advocacy team. So I've been making lots of templates with AZD, and my general goal is to try and cover a lot of scenarios. So the popular frameworks and Azure services. So like the 3 most popular frameworks, according to the surveys for Python, is Flask, Django, and Fast API. So if you are a Python web developer, you're probably using one of those, or at least, have used one of those. So that's what a lot of our samples focus on. So these are some new recent templates that I've made that cover different scenarios. So first, for Azure App Service, we've got templates for doing a Flask web app with Postgres, as well as a Django web app with Postgres. And both of these set up actually quite a few resources, because they actually put the Postgres server inside a virtual network with its own private DNS zone. That is a best practice from a security perspective. Other samples you might see might actually just do the thing where you allow certain IPs to access your server. That's not as secure as actually putting it inside a virtual network. So that's what these 2 samples do. And so if you want a sample like that, you can try those. And so both the Flask and Django, they have the same architecture. The only thing that's different is the actual code base. One uses Flask, one uses Django, but they both create this restaurant review app, just as an example of interacting with a database. So this one is a good one to get started with if you want a really standard database-driven app. After that, we have Azure Functions. So a really good match with Azure Functions is Fast API, and Fast API is a very cool framework. It's the new one of these, but it's just growing so much in popularity, and it's actually really fun to use. It's super fun to make APIs with Fast API. So the first one I have here is making a static maps API with Fast API. So the cool thing about Fast API is that all you do is you write a little bit of code and use Python types, and then it creates the API documentation for you using an open API schema. So I didn't have to write very much code at all in order to get this full interactive documentation. And I think this is amazing. One of my first jobs was at Google on Google Maps, where we had to like make this sort of thing from scratch. But here Fast API makes it for you. And so I can, try out the API and actually generate a map here. So here is a map of New York City that's generated from here.
Let me hop over to your screen share so you can see that.
Oh yeah. Here.
But I'm also like a huge fan of Fast API. Sebastian Ramirez has put in so much work on the developer experience for Fast API, and it uses typed annotated Python, which is super cool, and a good quality check. So excited to see these templates.
Yeah, so just a small amount of code and you get this. And this one is actually fronted by a CDN. So you can see in the URL that it's fronted by a CDN, and you can also see that in the architecture here. So we're not just setting up a function app. We're also setting up a CDN profile and endpoint. So that way you get some caching because we don't want to, abuse these map tile providers. So these have 7 hours of caching in the CDN, I think is how I set it up. So that's a nice example of Fast API plus CDN. Another example here is Fast API with an API management policy in front. So I like putting the API management service in front because then you can set up stuff like rate limiting. You can set up subscription keys. So the way I set up this one is that I actually put the API management in front, and so you can see that in the URL. But made it so that anybody can access the docs. So this is a publicly accessible URL, but then the API is still protected by the subscription key. And this was actually kind of tricky to work it out. So if I tried to run this API and I didn't have a subscription key, I'd get an access denied because I'm missing that subscription key. So I could actually go over to the API management service, go to subscriptions, show the keys. I'm going to delete them after the call. Copy the key here. And then now I can try it out. And hopefully this time we get success. There we go. This is a name generator. So that one worked. So that's a cool thing you can do.
With, I want to just mention that if you're unfamiliar with Fast API, APIM, last community call, we had Alex who did a full demo on APIM support. So if you want to learn more about APIM, check out the last community call.
Yeah. He shares some really great stuff you can do with tracing your API calls and debugging them. So I need to actually rewatch that call. It's really useful.
A lot of functionality.
So that's that sample. So that's a cool setup. And then the last two samples are with Azure Container Apps. So one of them puts a CDN in front and the other one doesn't, but it does that on a database. So let's see. So this one is the one that puts a CDN in front. So this is a photo gallery website. It's a little overkill to host it on Azure Container Apps. Normally I'd probably do app service or even a static web app, depending on how this worked. But I wanted to show that you could put, set up an Azure Container App and put a CDN in front of it. And so then we get, a pretty performant website here because the CDN is caching everything. And then we have a container app, which has a Postgres server. And that is for a survey app where you can, ask people surveys. So it just demonstrates how you would connect a container app with Postgres. So the goal with all of these is to try and come up with as many scenarios as that Python developers are interested in, so that you can easily find the thing that matches your needs and get up and running quickly with it. So if there's something we're missing, just let me know. I love excuses to make more AZD templates.
And of course, any of these, like the goal, right, is so maybe you don't care about the survey app part, but the architecture is relevant. And so with any of these templates, you can always swap out the source code and leverage Pamela's hard work that she put into writing the bicep for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do folks, what's the best way for folks to find all of these all of these templates that you offered?
That's a good question. Well, right now, they're all listed from my GitHub README and a bunch more too. So there's additional ones here beyond what I showed there. And then eventually they should all be listed from Awesome AZD. Just a few of them are still pending acceptance into the gallery, but hopefully you accept my templates.
We'll see you, Pamela. Just kidding.
So yeah, eventually they should be here. But if you want, more templates and you know what to do with, you can also hit up my GitHub profile.
Sweet. And you're on Twitter, Mastodon too, right? And so people can ping you there.
Yeah, just tweet me, toot me, whatever you want to do.
Call me, beat me, right? Like impossible. Anyway, cool. That's awesome. I'm super excited to have more Python samples in the ecosystem of AZD templates. So thanks for working on all these. This is awesome.
Yay.
Cool. And Christian in the chat says these are super useful, not only for Python devs. So
that's true. That's the thing about the architecture, right? And that's why the AZD template gallery is good, is that, you can choose what to sort by. So if you can't find something for your language, but what you're looking for is app service, you sort by app service and then you can narrow down from there.
Yeah. And we're actually, we have some designs that we have been working on for improving the filtering capabilities on this site. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in contributing to working on any of the designs that we have, all open source. So come ping us on the Awesome AZD repo, and I'd love to chat with you. Lots of ways to contribute to AZD. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks, Pamela. We will we'll see you in a bit, and I'll bring on our last special guest, which is Nick Greenfield. Hi,
Hey,
Nick.
how's it going?
It's going. It's Thursday morning, so but excited to be in the community call and excited to hear what new Dapr stuff's happening. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you, and we can also screen share if you want.
Yeah, sounds good. I think I'll just provide a little bit of an intro, and then we can hop over to my screen. But first, thanks for having me on the call, and I'll introduce myself. Nick Greenfield. I'm a product manager at Microsoft. I'm currently working on the Dapr project. And lately, one of my areas of focus is the Dapr integration into Azure Container Apps. And so that's why we're here today, to talk about some new and exciting templates that we have for Azure Container Apps that leverage Dapr. And just to provide a quick, it sounds like most people already know what Azure Container Apps is, but just for those that are unaware, it's a Azure PaaS for hosting containerized applications. It's built on top of Kubernetes, so it has a lot of the power and capabilities of Kubernetes, but abstracts away a lot of the complexities that, the operational complexities that are often associated with Kubernetes. And so Dapr is an open source CNCF incubation project that is seamlessly integrated into Azure Container Apps. And at its core, Dapr provides developers who are authoring microservices or backend APIs, a set of capabilities and APIs that help implement common microservice architectures. So that's whether it's service-to-service communication, whether pub/sub, direct service-to-service calls, how you persist state, how you observe your applications. Dapr provides these capabilities for those developers. And so, we've, myself and some of my coworkers, and shout out to Pamela, who's helped on some of these templates. We've created 3 new templates, and we'll take a look at these in a second, but they're really around leveraging the Dapr APIs, but within an Azure Container Apps context. The nice thing about these APIs is they have a lot of nice things built into them, like best practices around security, resiliency, observability. So highly encourage you to take a look at these templates. And I think with that, we can probably just hop over and let's go through them.
And also, while we're moving over to the screen share,
Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning Dapr is also very open source. And I think AZD and Dapr are like what cloud-native dreams are made of. So I'm really excited to jump into the demos.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, open source project. It's actually part of the CNCF as an incubation project. So it's pretty well known. It's really getting a lot of usage and growth.
Yeah. Okay. Have you started screen share? I'm not seeing your.
Sorry, let me do that.
You're good. You're
Share
good.
screen.
There's a lot of folks on the call today, so I have to like do a scroll down to the second row of faces to find you.
Cool. Let me know if this works.
Yeah. Okay. I will switch over.
Okay. So you can check out all of these. There's quite a few templates. The easiest way to browse these specific Dapr ACA templates is to go to an aka.ms link, Dapr to ACA. You'll notice that each of these templates has a different flavor depending on the language. So all of them support a C#, Python, and Node.js flavor. So we'll take a look at the first one. So this is microservice communication using the service invoke API with Dapr, which really is just a direct invocation, whether it's through HTTP or gRPC from one container app, in this case, to another. And like I mentioned, you get a lot of nice things behind the scenes via Dapr. So you get automatic MTLS, you get resiliency with automatic retries. And so, yeah, that's the purpose of this, is to showcase the service invocation API. And when you deploy this, and we'll take a look at an example in a second, you get really a fully fleshed out Azure Container App environment as well. So you get the environment, you get your components if there are any. It'll use manage identity for authentication. You get all your app Azure Monitor, App Insights, Log Analytics, all of that wired up, included in these templates. These templates have instructions on how to run them locally with Dapr, but then at the bottom, there's that, deploy to Azure. And the thing that I love the most about this is it's as simple as running just an ACD up, and I get this complete solution running up in Azure. So that's the first one, service invoke Dapr Node.js. The next one is another Dapr API. It's the bindings API. So in this case, it's kind of showcasing two different functionalities. It's an input binding, which we have a cron that's basically sending an event every 10 seconds to a service. Again, this would be a container app in this case. And it's taking that event, processing it, and then it's sending out an event as an output binding, making an insert into a Postgres database. In this case, it'd be Azure Postgres when it's running up in Azure. And so, yep, same thing, how to run it locally, and then very similar, just a simple AZD up, and you get that solution running in Azure. The last one, which is missing a nice picture, I'm going to commit that after this call, but is the pub sub example. So this is two microservices, two container apps. One is a publisher that's publishing messages to a message broker. In this case, when you run it locally, it's using a Redis container, but when you do your AZD up, it's going to run it in Azure using Azure Service Bus. And then you have a subscriber microservices who's reading messages from that broker. Same story, simple AZD up. And then lastly, if you want something a little bit more complex that combines multiple Dapr APIs in use, and shout out to Paul Yuck here for working on this one, we have this aka.ms Dapr albums, which will showcase another full flesh scenario, but like I said, multiple Dapr APIs in practice here. So you have multiple microservices. I think there's like state persistence, direct service to service invoke, things like that. He went the extra mile and it actually added some instructions on how to open this in like code spaces and things too. So it's pretty neat.
Oh yeah, Paul's an avid code spaces user.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess that's a good reminder that you can use AZD wherever you feel comfortable, whether that be VS Code, Visual Studio, code spaces, directly in whatever terminal you use, anywhere you want.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, yep. And then I guess just to show that bindings example that I had open here, just to show you actually deployed and what it looks like, it's when you're running it locally, it's really just the three components, right? You have your cron, your scheduler, you have your one service here that's taking those incoming events, and then your the backend here, which in this case is Postgres. But when you do that deployment, you're getting quite a few of these resources, right, that are in this template here. You have all of your Azure Monitor, you have your container apps environment, the container app itself, your key vault, your identity, things like that. And then when you actually go into the container app, you can see it's actually working. It works. This is proof where these events are coming in, it's processing them and then sending them out to Azure Postgres. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm trying to think about if anything else I missed here that I wanted to touch on. I don't think so. That's it.
Are all these on? I don't think all of these are on the Awesome AZD website yet, right?
Not yet. That's the next step. Yeah. So right now, these are just under Azure samples. We'll be documenting these and publishing, running some blog posts. We'll get them in the gallery. That's actually the last thing I was going to say is like, how would you use these templates? Well, personally, I think what I love about AZD is like the code to cloud experience and how fast that is. So if you just want to get something running quick in Azure, in this case in container apps, AZD is great for that. You can see and play around with it. And then also, I think a lot of these templates can be reused for your own personal projects. A lot of the stuff can be copied and pasted, right? How we set up authentication, things like that. Those modules can be reused. So yeah.
Yeah, I think also like I know on one of the samples you showed, it had like the big shiny, I think it was the one that Paul was working on, the open in code spaces button, but like you can find a template, click open in code spaces, and then basically be off to the races. And with the extension, the AZD extension, you can do AZD up like right away, which is like I think pretty. At least I did it from an airplane a couple weeks back, or I guess a couple months now. On my way to GitHub Universe, I like did an AZD up from the plane, all from the browser, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, I know, it's so efficient.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I'm super excited to get these samples into Awesome AZD. But yeah, if you have feedback or any questions for Nick, add in the chat. Or I think Nick, what's the best way to reach you, on Twitter or GitHub or? Yeah,
Twitter, GitHub, all Discord. Dapr is a Discord, container apps, Dapr, Discord. Those are all really great places. So I'm in all those channels.
Cool, awesome. Well, thanks for hopping onto the community call and demoing the samples.
Absolutely.
We will bring everyone back for Q&A right at the end. But yeah, I'll let you off the hook for now. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Alrighty, let's pop back over to our slide deck. Cool. I'll hand it over to Grace, you've been so silent this whole time, friend.
Yeah, I know. I guess it's hard to find a place to, insert myself when we have so much to talk about. There are so many great things going on.
I know. We need like a hand raise functionality or like emoji reaction from the people in the lobby. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Emojis would be like a reaction thing would be great, but it's been awesome to listen about and learn about these things. I guess I kind of already knew about them, but it's nice to hear people talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so we just want to say thank you to our community contributors. We linked on here just like the PRs and issues that they've filed. David Gardner, he helped with creating the chocolatey package that Daniel mentioned earlier in the call. Aaron Powell, who found and fixed an issue with one of the AZD login messages. Christian Lechner, who I do know is on this call right now because I saw him posting in chat, and he made changes to configure a health checkpoint endpoint with Azure App Service, which is great. And then Pamela Fox, who we just heard talk, did a whole bunch of things that maybe I won't rattle off, but she's done a lot of work to really help AZD. She made all those templates too, which isn't even on here. And then contributed, I believe this is a mixture of filing issues and maybe some PRs in here too. So thank you, Pamela, and everybody else for contributing. And also this just helps serve as a reminder that this is all open source. As Savannah mentioned, Awesome AZD is open source, that website where we have our template gallery, as well as the product itself. I don't know if we have short links that we can show as banners for those, but they should be pretty easy to find if we don't have those immediately available.
Yeah, we have the core repo, of course, and then we have the Awesome AZD website, which I believe you can also find through the core repo as well. And yeah, just big shout out to everyone for contributing. This is where we need the party popper emoji.
Yeah.
But yeah, super big thank you. Cool.
Oh yeah, and then just as always, calling for feedback. Savannah, you kind of mentioned that throughout this call, but we're always looking for feedback. We're also always looking for people to sign up to be a part of our user research. And there's one other thing I was going to say in that. It was a set of three, but I can't remember the third anymore. I lost my train of thought.
Relatable. And I think that user research can take many forms. Sometimes it's just like a short conversation, completely informal. Sometimes it's like getting to see a feature early and giving feedback to help us make the product better and make our future features have a good developer experience. So truly like small and big things to help us with. But yeah, there are lots of ways to contribute to AZD that are non-code contributions. Let's celebrate open source non-code contributions because those are also extremely valuable.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, that takes us to Q&A. So I'll bring our speakers back in case anyone has any final comments. Otherwise, you can see all of their shining faces this morning, wherever you are in the world. Maybe it's not morning. We're all back. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you don't have questions for us now, you can always find us on GitHub, on Twitter. There's the GitHub link. But yeah, that's about it, y'all. Any questions? I think there's like a 12-second rule that I once heard. I think the Python team uses it. Oh, Paul's in the background here now. Should I bring Paul up? Hey, Paul.
Hey.
What's happening?
Hey, what's happening? I love AZD.
Yeah, I know. We have so many great supporters on the call today. I'm so grateful.
Nice.
Any questions for the Dapr folks, Python folks, AZD folks? I don't know. There's a 12, as I was saying, there is a 12-second rule where it's like if there's silence for 12 seconds, that's like acceptance that there are no questions.
I'm going to follow that from now on, by the way.
I think the Python, well, I used to work on the Python VS Code team. I think Brett Cannon and Luciana Abud, they use that in their meetings. And so I adopted it. And I say silence is acceptance and, gotta keep forging forward.
I have a question, just an icebreaker. The modules that are in core, the core folders, are those moving to a bicep registry at some point?
That is the plan. We're kind of trying to firm up the developer experience of them first before we move them there. John, who is in the chat but not in this call, has been working kind of on the modules and their fidelity. I don't know if John has any thoughts he wants to share. But yeah, that is the plan eventually. Also some stuff to think about there in terms of the overall developer inner loop experience. So like as you're editing, if we move them to a registry, we want to make sure that, you're still able to like code navigate to things, still able to get, good completions and stuff. So I think there's some stuff to also think through on that dimension as well.
That makes sense. My basic MO these days is I sync to Azure/Azure Dev and the common templates in there, and I treat that like my registry.
Cool. Yeah, John just echoed. Yep, they're coming soon. Coming to a registry near you. So yeah. But if you have any feedback, I mean, that's like I think I've said feedback like 40 times this call, but like if you have any feedback on the modules or any of that experience, also please do share it with us. We're always trying to make those better too. Those are also like, we're spinning the wheels trying to get the experience there solid. So yeah. All right.
Yeah. I do have a to-do to try and add VNet virtual network to the modules. I just have to figure out exactly like how to organize it because VNets are actually kind of involved. There's a lot of little components. It's just like, which file should it go in and what should be configured where? And I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I loved your call out about like the security best practices though, of like using a VNet, because I think a lot of folks who are non-cloud people who are just wanting to get their app to Azure don't necessarily know that, right? So, we do, I think that's in the spirit of trying to set people up for success on many different dimensions, right? So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that the one negative is that it's additional resources, so it will increase your budget. So that's just depends on what you're working on, right? If it's a hobbyist thing that is, it's just your app that monitors for cats outside your window, then you probably don't need a VNet. because he's already outside your window. But when you're going into production, you want that VNet.
But what if you have cats like inside your window? Like, what do you do?
Well,
then?
then you might need a VNet because they might be very private cats.
I mean, you need like a lot of nets, like a lot of nets. I got 3 of them, so.
I was just going through our support calls, and there's a ton of support calls for people trying to learn how to do VNets the right way with Bicep and ARM. So what you're saying totally resonates. I almost feel like it's maybe about half and half. I see like half folks use VNets, half don't. And I'm going through, I think, the same process because I've been working with John and Nick to get managed service identity flowed through, and that was kind of like touching everything.
Yeah, managed identity is pretty neat when you get it working. I didn't realize it makes it so easy to access stuff from Azure. So with one of the container app samples, it does use the Key Vault SDK to pull out a secret. Because we weren't able to do it in the Bicep because of just the complexity of packaging up the container and putting it in registry and stuff like that. But the Key Vault SDK, it was actually super easy to use from Python because it was just able to use the Azure default credential because of the whole managed identity thing.
Yeah, that's totally cool. We had one too. It's called Dapr Albums, or aka.ms/Dapr Albums. We use it for container app samples a lot. But anyway, the step 1 was we used a managed identity to get keys from the Key Vault. So at least you're not carrying a certificate or a secret to get to the Key Vault, which is kind of ironic. And then step 2 is we made every resource talk to every other resource using managed identity. And we cut the secrets all together out, which was like, it felt really good. Yeah.
Sweet. Cool. Any questions in the chat? I guess the one other thing for folks in the chat, or if you're watching this later and recording, if there are like show and tells that you'd like to see, like deep dives from our team on, like the template process or how to use AZD for certain things, and you have ideas about stuff you'd like to learn about, I would love to hear from you. Definitely open to the idea of hosting more, less community call high level and more of like deep dive type I don't know, live stream events. So if you have ideas around that, do reach out to me or ping us on GitHub, and I'll try and get something coordinated there. All right. Well, we've been live for 55 minutes. So I think that might be it if there are no questions, or if any of our guests don't have last minute plugs for things they're working on.
I am speaking at AZD at 2 upcoming conferences if people want to come. So Python WebConf, I'll show how to deploy Python apps with AZD, very similar, much more deeper than we went today because it didn't really show. And then CitusCon, which is a conference about Postgres. So I'll be deploying Postgres with AZD and Bicep at CitusCon.
Cool. Do you have links to that, like on Twitter or anything like that?
I should.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'll add them to my GitHub README. That's what I should do.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, definitely sign up for those if you're interested in getting a walkthrough of a deep dive.
I have a plug too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so last Friday I minted a new GitHub repo and sample that shows how to use ChatGPT. I hear that's
you did show
popular right now. Yeah, so it's you could basically ask ChatGPT anything using your own key, and it's really simple and it's hosted in a function, and of course it's AZD up. So yeah, check it out.
I definitely retweeted that last week at the very least. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, we should also try to get that added to Awesome AZD when you feel like it's in a good spot.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm not quite there. There's a couple kinks I want to work out, and I'm gonna bring it to more languages once I work the kinks out.
Sweet.
So right now I think it's a Node, and I want to bring it to like Python, C#, maybe Java.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking OpenAI with Fast API. It would be that.
With Fast API, that would be cool.
That would be sweet. I would love that. I'm a huge fan of Fast API. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks speakers, and thanks Paul for just popping on at the last minute. Love chatting with all of you this morning. And for everyone tuning in now or in the future, we will have another community call probably like second week of March. But in the meantime, do ping us on GitHub or Twitter or wherever you are. I think we're on like every social media platform. Otherwise, we will see you next community call. All right. Bye, friends. Talk to you later.